Makeshift is a new documentary from directors Tim Cawley and Suchan. And the film caught my attention because it discusses two things that I am very interested in: technology and advertising. Aside from movies, these are two topics that I am very passionate about and very engaged with on a daily basis. And so when I came across the film, I had to check it out. And I was very fortunate to be able to talk with one of the directors, Tim Cawley, and a producer on the film, Carley Thompson. So we had the chance to talk about advertising and technology and movies, and honestly, I couldn't have a better collection of topics to discuss in an interview. My camera is off for this interview just because I was on a lunch break from my marketing job at work, and the signal was better to just do an audio version on my part. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoy this interview. Great. Well, I am on the line currently with Tim Cawley and Carley Thompson. Tim is the director of the documentary Makeshift, and Carley is one of the producers. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to have this conversation with me.
Thanks for having us.
Likewise.
Yeah, very cool. So there's a couple reasons this documentary caught my attention. One is because I love learning more about the evolution of technology in our modern world. But secondly, is because marketing is my day job. I am in the marketing industry for small businesses, and so this seemed very relevant to me. Tim, would you mind giving us a little summary of what Makeshift is about?
Makeshift is about the advertising industry in a state of evolution. For maybe 60, 70 years, it was the Don Draper thing you'd see on Mad Men, where you made a big television spot, you went to California or New York, you shot it, you stayed in a hotel, and the whole business was built around this technology of television with a little print or radio or out of home built. And then the internet came, and this massive industry, this cushy industry, this kind of glamorous in some ways industry, wanted it to not be real. Some agencies just put their head in the sand. It upended everything. And they had built all this infrastructure around television. And within 5 years, this was an existential threat. And this is about the agencies that bumped up against that and did not blink and adopted it, and for the agents who won, who didn't win, and what came after it, and what that new breed of, I won't even say ad agency, but marketing company, whether it's a tech company, is it an ad company, is it a marketing company, blurring those lines. And I think the film is sort of the manifestation of that, because and I should say that the director is Suchan, and I'm the co-director. So I got to give my shout out to Casey, who's in a canyon somewhere. But the film is kind of living that, in that I came up in that world of making television commercials, and I run an ad agency. And Carley at WP Engine is my client in an advertising capacity. But they came to me saying, what if we didn't make an ad? What if we made a movie? And it's not an ad, it's just a piece of entertainment that we can engender goodwill. So Carley is the person who brought that project to me. So that's the way clients are thinking, and the evolution of what an ad agency can produce.
Yeah, Carley, tell me more about your role in the development of this documentary, and also a question to both of you guys: what made you decide that now was a good time to make this film?
Yes, absolutely. So as Tim said, yes, we're his client at WP Engine. I'm his client long time. And we're a technology company that powers some of the biggest brands and agencies, of which we feature in this film. And we basically enable them to build amazing digital experiences. So that's what we care about. We care about websites and apps and online interactions and social engagements. That's where we live. That's where we serve. That's what we care about. So of course, we were having discussions about ways to break through some of that clutter, break through the noise in an interesting way. And how do you do that? On a totally different medium and a totally different channel, branded content. And we've seen a lot of it done, but a documentary film, that's the ultimate branded content. And to do it well is a really tricky business. So we had the kind of idea brewing for how we could bring something to life that told this story of a vision we had about the history and evolution and future of creative technology, because it matters to us, but it also matters to all of our customers. So we wanted that story to be told, and we figured, well, I guess we'll tell it and we'll figure out how to do that. But we really need some creative help to get us over the line. And so we called on Tim, who'd been our longtime agency partner, who knows the industry inside and out, but has also been a filmmaker, to kind of play around with some of those ideas for bringing that to life. So Tim, you want to talk about that next step?
Yeah, so they said, what if we made a movie? And I had made it and sold a movie. And I said, I can do that. I think I know how to do that. And I'd done a documentary, but I said, I can't do it alone. So I reached out to September Club, who have done the Mormon murder thing that's on Netflix, The Last Blockbuster. They had done the Jim Carrey, Andy Kaufman. They're like the best of the best at digital documentary storytelling. And I brought this idea. They brought on Casey, and the thing got a life of its own. And I got to give a little shout out to our producers, WP Engine. Like, it's hard when we're just putting, like, Carley, I'll put a 30-second ad in front of you, and we pour over it and we rub our hands together and we have changes. But so 30 seconds times 80 minutes, that's 160 times the normal amount of information you'd have to digest. And you go, oh my God, how can a client, you took off your advertising hat and just said, we're going to make a movie and we're going to make it beautiful and it's not going to feel like an ad. So Thomas, did it feel like an ad to you, or did we make just a movie that somebody with your interest could find entertainment pleasure in without any agenda?
It did not feel like an ad to me, which I really appreciate, because there are so many big blockbuster movies that I watch, and they have product placement that's so overt, and maybe it's just because I'm sensitive to it. Like, I know what to look for, and I've trained my husband to look for the same things. So now when we're watching a movie, he'll be like, "Oh, that Coke can is very."
So you ruined it for him too.
I did, yes, unfortunately. But no, it really felt like an authentic documentary, from people who are just interested in the industry. It's actually kind of interesting to hear your guys' involvement and relationship and the purpose of this film. So that's great.
And so many, I'm sure you have so many filmmakers on who say, oh, the first question, where'd you get the money? Or like, how'd you make it happen? And I think a lot of people would be scared to partner with a brand in that, we all have this auteur thing, as a filmmaker, that you want autonomy. But if you partner with the right brand who really wants to do the right thing, and you have the hard conversations up front, in that we can make an ad, but nobody's going to want to watch it or rent it from the iTunes store or download it on Google Play. We got to make a legitimate piece of entertainment, and that's how you get the brownie points. And it's a very viable route. Finding people who can make a project happen is hard to do. And because I come in from the advertising industry, this was the least indie thing I've ever done. Like, we traveled in airplanes, we stayed in hotels, we had dinner. Not that this was Hollywood, but it was, it was buttoned up.
Well, that's great. Tech and advertising is such a vast subject. Like, it's endless. There's so much that you could talk about. I was curious if there was anything that you were interested in covering in this documentary, but just didn't have time to get to.
Carley, you want to take that?
I mean, how many hours of footage did we have at the end of this, Tim? And I think that's like that with any film that's created. You leave so much on the cutting room floor that's near and dear to your heart, but you've got to tell a succinct story, one that tracks well, but still within a real movie timeline. So I would say some of the biggest things that we ended up cutting out, Tim, you let me know if you agree, were just all the amazing examples of work. I mean, we nerded out on just all the amazing things people had done with technology when we didn't know what we were doing with it, when most people were just making banner ads, and there were these people trying to figure out open source and how to work together across the internet with each other, and in chat rooms talking to people across the world, and it was all new. And we wanted to tell these really interesting stories people knew about, these campaigns that were hot buttons that everybody talked about, but also the ones people didn't, that actually furthered, internet technology and advancement. And we got a lot of those in there, and they're great stories, but there were just so many that we knew we couldn't fit them all.
Yeah, there's the juicy, scandalous ones where it started off like a social media fight or firestorm, those kinds of things. I think there was a lot of like viral stuff. Like there was a lot of cases that were viral, but we didn't want it to be a film just about social media. So we wanted it to be like, you can use technology to solve all manner of problems through all different mediums. So we had AR examples, we had blockchain examples, we had social media, we had online video. But the most pop culture ones, that made the evening news tended to be somebody did a crazy trick on social media. So we were probably heavied up there at first. Those were the ones that got cut that had sizzle, but it was just making the film too much about social media and not about a range of solutions.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I do appreciate the diversity of topics that you guys were able to cover, because there is a lot to cover, but you guys picked out some really fun ones, like the Burger King chicken ad, or the kind of publicity stunt. That was cool, and I remember when that happened. So that's really cool to see that in hindsight. And sometimes these things, they have a life, but then the way that culture evolves, we kind of forget about it until we're reminded. So it's fun to go back and look at those early 2000s times and what the technology was back then. In fact, when the documentary was talking about viral marketing, the campaign that I very clearly remember participating in and being so enthralled with was when Cloverfield came out. There was a viral marketing campaign around that movie that did a lot of this like online community thing where there were threads and chat rooms about how to crack this code. So that was kind of my introduction to different types of marketing. I'm interested are there any campaigns that stand out to you guys that maybe has like influenced how you look at advertising or how you do advertising?
Infinity examples. I would say every day I'm jealous of something. We were talking about movie marketing on one of the other calls. Carley, both of you might be too young for this, but I think it was The Exorcist. When they came out, they didn't show clips from the film in the ad. They showed people screaming in the theater and like fainting in the theater. And that was the ad, which no one had ever done. And simple idea, easy, probably cheaper than using the clips themselves. And what I love is anytime you go, here's the established rules of how you sell something, and then a client goes, given those rules, here's exactly how I'd like to break them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's talking about something without talking about it, showing something without showing it explicitly. It's kind of inserting the message organically, which I think like we definitely took into making this film. Like Thomas, you were talking about product placement in movies and how annoying and obvious it can be. But if you weave in that brand story so it's organic, it just helps the story along. It doesn't distract. And so I think a lot of those examples are what we think about day to day. And you're right, there's infinity examples. Thankfully, thankfully we have so many amazing creative minds just jamming on this at all times and making us think and making us want to be better.
And the one thing the film does is, you brought it up, Thomas, of like how many things, like the chicken thing comes and goes over the course of a couple of days from Burger King. Everyone remembers it, but then the next thing catches your eye, the next viral video or the next ad campaign with a celebrity in it. And what this does is pump the brakes a little bit and say, that was like a moment in time when everyone paid attention. So there's some pop culture moments in the film that I think people would be like, oh, I never really thought of what went into that. It bounced off my brain. I remember enjoying it, and I don't even, all of the, not only planning and creativity, but serendipity that goes into something breaking through for one reason or another.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is really fun to go back and analyze those things. But yes, you're right. Tons of different advertising that can affect people, whether they realize it or not, especially me. I am always looking out for how businesses and companies are using advertising in a creative way, and that inspires me in how I do my job. So it's fun to watch your documentary and learn more about the history of that and also where it's going. I guess this will be my last question. We can bring it to a close. As I mentioned, I work in marketing for small businesses, right? And so we look up to and we aspire to a lot of the things that are discussed in the documentary. What would your takeaway for like small businesses and companies that are a little more hesitant to adopt these new advertising methods? What would your message be to them, and what would you want them to get out of this movie?
Me personally, I would say don't adopt a method, adopt a mindset, because you adopt a method and that method might not be valid a year from now when you figure out how to use that method or that medium. But the thing I think the film communicates is every business challenge, every business itself, small or large, and there's small businesses, some of these agencies in there are the Venturous is 2 people, Active Theory is probably a dozen people. They ran up against like existential challenges, and it wasn't like this solution or that solution. It was saying, I have a hunger for creative problem solving to get around these obstacles instead of being stuck in the way of this is how I do it. It's saying there will be endless barriers in front of me, and those who win are the people who are driven and kind of turned on by the adversity and the problem solving to get past those things. That was my takeaway.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, really building on that, things that we saw in these interviews at these agencies and people we talked to, founders, they came from small businesses. Like, we're taking them back to a time when they first started their agency and talking to them through today, where now it's maybe a huge agency with 1,000 employees. And so a lot of their mantras were still the same, and it's fail fast, which I think is a great way of thinking, right? It's a mindset, Tim, where don't be afraid to take those chances. Don't get too bogged down in process. You have to try and you have to test and you have to iterate. And that's what the whole film is about. The landscape of the digital world is never going to stay the same. So you have to be comfortable in being uncomfortable and taking those risks and taking those chances. Get out there, do it, try it. If it didn't work, change it and get out there again, because something will stick.
I love it. All of those things I try to maintain in my own career and how I come about advertising. So I'm happy that that's how you guys kind of package it and demonstrated in this documentary. It's really good, and I enjoyed watching it. It was refreshing to come across a documentary that's so relevant to my own personal life and what I do for a living. So Awesome. You know what, Tim, Carley, thank you guys so much again for this conversation. Just for anyone listening or watching, Tim is one of the co-directors of Makeshift. Carley is a producer, and the documentary is now available to watch on VOD. So I very strongly recommend that you go check it out if you're interested in technology or advertising, or if you just want to watch an entertaining documentary. So, guys, thank you so much.
Thanks, Thomas. Great talking to you.